welcome back to U.S. Home Talk. We are live every Wednesday at noon and on demand at ushometalk.com or wherever you guys find your podcasts. We are your hosts, Marcus Walgrave with the South Dakota Home Team, powered by Hague Realtors, Jason Walgrave with the Walgrave Real Estate Group at RE/MAX Advantage Plus, and Mike Overson with Illuminate Home Loans. We'll be taking all your questions during the show, anything and everything real estate. The call-in number is 612-234-7585. Again, that's 612-234-7585. Or if it's just easier, leave us a message in the comments section on Facebook. Our exceptional producer, Evan Little, is not kicking off today's show for us, making sure we're got killer music and we're ready to rock and roll. Nice quick shot there from Evan, so thank you for that, Evan. We're going to have a great show. Good news in real estate, right? I feel like it's kind of hard to come by nowadays. Right? Choo-choo.
We'll take it. We'll take some good news.
We'll take it. And it kind of comes in the line for buyers. So we got some good news out there for buyers here at this moment in time in real estate. And we're just going to kind of cover those things here today quickly and get you guys up to speed. So, Jason, Mike, how are we doing today?
Fantastic.
Doing great.
Very
the
good,
good
very
news
good.
here, the good news that we're going to be talking about, it's I always look at good news. It's like, it depends on what you compare it to, right? If you compare today's interest rates to interest rates when COVID was around, it's not going to be good. If you compare today's interest rates to interest rates where they were in 2001, we're sitting really good, right? Or if you go back to 1984, like mid to late 80s, when rates were 16, 17, 18%, well, I mean, this is almost like free money compared to that, right?
Right.
So yeah, I was good and excited that you brought up this topic, because there's a lot of negativity in the mainstream media about housing stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But again, it's what are you comparing it to? What's the expectation? What are you comparing it to? There's a lot of stuff we're going to be talking about today where people are going to see that there's a lot of good in real estate and mortgage today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think when we talk about some good news too, Mike, I think it's a good way to when you're comparing one generation to another or one decade to another, and it's relative to that. But like we've always talked about, between the three of us, and it doesn't matter what market we're in. People have life events that happen that require them to do a real estate transaction. Maybe it's employment. New employment opportunity. Perhaps it's just simply, unfortunate of a death in the family or divorce. Real estate happens in all markets, right? So if you are a buyer out there, it is likely because you simply want or need to purchase a property here in the immediate future. So when we kind of talk about that, it's for those individuals who are in the game. They're likely in the game because they simply need to satisfy real estate, a personal need of theirs, and they're doing it here this year in 2024. The summer starts tomorrow. So it's for them. They're kind of living in the moment.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Marcus. It doesn't. Folks need a place to live, right? And they have life events that occur that require different housing needs, either a bigger house or a smaller house, or house with less stairs or more bedrooms or bigger yard. And in 25 years of doing this, we've helped out families, I mean, nearly every day for the last 25 years. And you think about all the I got something going on here. All of the different markets that we've seen, the real estate crash in 2007, the foreclosures and short sales, for 4 or 5 years after that, investors, home buyers, builders, new construction. So you're absolutely correct. That's one of the things about the real estate industry is that it is, people will always need a place to live. And there's in rentals that there's still this incredibly low supply of rental properties available. So, rates that are, hovering or averaging around the mid sixes right now, when you look at both FHA, VA, and conventional, that's pretty darn good. Rates in the mid sixes is really good. If we get into the fives, that's what I would consider great. The COVID rates of, those are folks are never going to come back. And so, if I think that buyers are, they see the opportunities out there with the housing market, and there are opportunities, even though the prices are high when you compare that to renting, it still makes sense in almost every case to own rather than it does to rent.
So we're going to kind of cover three focuses here on today's good news for buyers topic. One's going to be inventory, and the other one's going to be rates. And then lastly, we're going to kind of talk on some new construction. So let's just kind of focus on the inventory. I've been reading a number of real estate media outlets, are putting out stories out there, or simply major media outlets, and they're discussing real estate. And what is the trending story on inventory here in the U.S. is inventory is on the rise. I mean, obviously, that is going to be a benefit to buyers. And this is generally speaking, I think it was referencing a vast majority of the major markets that we have here in the U.S. In those major markets, inventory is on the rise. If you're a buyer out there, it is good news to know that if you're going to start your house hunting in a vast majority of our major markets, you're going to have more options to look at. We're not in that position in 2022 where it was like, okay, you're coming to town to see some homes. Awesome. I'm excited to see you. We got 4 to look at. And that's as of today. And by the time you get here on Saturday, those 4 probably aren't going to be there, and we're going to have to find you another 4. And we're only going to have 4 to look at, so right. We won't need to have 2-3 days to house hunt because there aren't 2-3 days worth of houses to hunt for. However, those kind of changing. But I can't emphasize this enough. Jason, I'd like to get your input on this to see if maybe you have some stats on your end. But we got our... And this is a micro level, right? I service the Sioux Empire. The Sioux Empire makes up the Sioux Falls, South Dakota area. Sioux Falls in general is a small state in terms of population. We only have 2 major cities, one Rapid City on the far west side of the state, and the state is a wide state. And then the other large city is Sioux Falls, and that's the market I work in. And the Sioux Empire is kind of what makes up the Sioux Falls and metro area. Our market specifically, we do not have an increase in inventory when comparing this year to last year. We are actually down in inventory. So it is something just to kind of keep in mind that, the information that you get in general, if you are house hunting in a major market, it's likely that you're going to have some higher inventory. But in my specific market here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, as a market as a whole, the Sioux Empire, we are down. However, right, we can even get it even to a more specific level. When we start looking into inventory in my specific market, and I'm kind of looking at how it breaks down, we have all properties as a stat, and then we have single family detached as a stat, and then we have a separate stat, a condo townhouse attached. As all properties were down, in the exception of $1 million plus properties, which we are up 53%. So if you're a buyer in that market, even though that in our market as a whole is down, if you're a $1 million plus buyer, you're thumbs up. You got good inventory here in the Sioux Empire. Single family detached are down, pretty much across the board, but the vast majority of the condo townhouse properties, that's up. And I think we can all relate to that, right? I mean, there was this incredible push from our developers and builders to build condos and townhomes developments, these maybe considered to be more affordable housing. I mean, just hundreds and hundreds of those type of units got built here in the last 24 months. So that makes sense on why, if that's the specific property that you're looking for, you're going to be in good hands. So that's what we're seeing here in the Sioux Empire. Jason, what do you kind of see up there in the Twin Cities for inventory?
I haven't looked at actual stats for a few weeks, but I can pull those up for next week's show. I feel like the inventory is pretty similar to last year at this time. just based on the activity and the buyers that we're currently working with. I would be surprised if it's a whole lot different than it was last year at this time. So, overall, we have a low inventory. It's more of a seller's market than a buyer's market because of that low in inventory. But you made a comment about townhomes. I feel like there might be more townhomes on the market right now than there were last year at this time. That's a great point to bring up. And on the rental side of things, it's vacancies are hovering right around 1%, which is pretty incredible as well. So overall, the market's hot. I mean, it is definitely, you can feel that the summer real estate market is here because there's a lot of activity, a lot of stuff going on. So
Summer officially starts tomorrow, so things are going to get hot.
Oh, you're right. So is today still spring?
Still spring.
Technically.
Spring.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yep.
Didn't feel like spring yesterday.
So I actually do have our stats for our market. So we're at 8,450 homes up here in the metro area of Minneapolis. So the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul area.
Okay.
So I think the 11 county metro area, we're at 8,450 homes. We are up 7%. It's either 7 or 8% from last year.
Okay.
Overall. So it's up a little bit, but a balanced market up here in our area is what, Jason? 16 to 18,000 homes ish.
Yeah, I would say 18 to 20. I mean that would, I mean we can remember back a long time ago there was 46,000 listings. 46,000 homes for sale. Of course, that was right after the crash. But, I think a real healthy balanced market is somewhere between 18 and 20,000 listings. So we're still down, 55, 60% from what we would consider to be a balanced market.
Balanced. Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's, and that's been the norm for how long? I mean, when's the last time we even hit 10,000 listings? I mean, if we look at the last 10 years up here in the Twin Cities, we've hit 10,000 listings maybe twice. Otherwise we've been underneath that the whole time. And, so that supply and demand curve, has always been, for at least the last 10 years, lower supply, and our demand is always high. We always have the demand out there. There's always buyers, right? There's always buyers out there looking, whether it's the Sioux Falls market that Marcus is in, whether it's the Minneapolis metro area that we're in, or go across the country, pretty much either where. There's always buyers there, right?
To that point, Mike, again, if you're a stat person and you don't really like to hear anybody's opinion, you're like, give me a stat. I'm not going to believe it until I see a stat. Well, how do you prove that there's a lot going on in terms of activity? Our inventory isn't low because homes aren't hitting the market. In my, when I'm looking at our numbers, it's low because properties are getting bought.
Yeah, sales
buyers want to be in our markets that we are in, that we service here. Pending sales here in the Sioux Empire, we're up 32% when year to date comparing to from last year.
Whoa.
Closed sales, we're up over 15% closed sales than we are comparing to last year. So when we talk about our inventory being low here in our markets, it's not because sellers aren't going to the market and builders aren't building and buyers aren't buying. Complete opposite. It's just that there is so much demand from our buyers, and they're just getting them under contract, and they're just simply not sitting on the market to allow for those numbers to build up to 10, 15, 20,000 in your market, or in my market, it's closer to like 1,600 or 2,000. We're about a tenth of the size. So in terms of inventory, so and again, I mean your stats. What's the nice thing about Minnesota is a vast majority of the MLSs, they share data, so you guys are able to compile information that pretty much covers the whole state, right? And a little bit different in South Dakota. The MLSs don't necessarily share data. So when I speak on data, it is very specific to the market that the Sioux Empire, the area that I serve, and so it's kind of a little bit of the discrepancy in data size. So inventory, always a fun topic to discuss, right? And a lot of pending sales, a lot of closed sales. Days on market still really low, things like that nature. Median sale price still going up. to your point, Mike, supply and demand. Demand still, if there was no demand, then we wouldn't be seeing the median sale price on the rise. You know,
Right.
I think it's a healthy market. To your point, maybe more of a balanced market. We're not seeing a 15% increase in the median sale price. More probably getting more close to like a 50-year average rate, something like that. So, next good news out there. Next good news, mortgage rates. They're getting better. Especially here in the last 7 days in general. I mean, like Mike, I know the volatility in rates is very unique nowadays. Where 5 years ago, maybe a quarter point jump over a month period was like, whoa, that was kind of crazy. Now it's
Right.
like, oh yeah, that's a daily ebb and flow kind of a
It is.
situation. So, but in general, rates are looking pretty good for buyers out there.
They're down. I mean, every rate that I have quoted or locked in the last 2 weeks has been in the sixes.
Yeah.
So
woo.
VAs, I got 3 VAs locked right now at 6.25 on a 30-year fixed.
Nice.
Right. Got a couple conventionals, 6.5, 6.625, another one at 6.875. Credit score and all this other stuff determines all that. But literally, if you look at the last 2 weeks of all the loans that I've quoted and or locked, they've all been in the sixes. When's the last time that we've been able to say that? Been a while. It's been a little while, right? But to Marcus's point, it does look like an EKG. If you look at the graph, or even if just from the first of the year, from January 1st of this year till now, it does look like an EKG, right? Big up, big down, little up, little down, big up, big down, right? And it's just like that, and it repeats itself. If I look at last year, my busiest closing month last year was August, which is typically the slowest closing month that we have, right? So I look back and I'm like, why was August such a big closing month last year? Well, when I go back to June of last year, our interest rates were between 6.125 and 6.625 for the entire month. We didn't see this up and down. It was more of a steady deal. We had 30 full days of steady interest rates in that low to mid 6 range. That got people confidence to say, okay, rates have calmed down. It's predictable. I can go out there and confidently write an offer on a home. I know my rate today is 6.25. By the time I get an accepted purchase agreement, maybe it's 6.5, but I can live with that, right? We've worked with clients where it's like they get pre-approved today. They find a house 3 weeks from now, their rate is 0.5% higher, right? That starts moving the needle for some people. So having that consistency in June of last year with rates yielded the biggest closing month of last year, which was August then. So it's like we get rates into the sixes, right? Let's just try to get some consistency, right? So people can actually plan and budget for that, where it's not like, hey, if you find a house this week, it's in your budget. But if you find a house next week when rates go up, it's out of your budget, right? And now we're back in your budget, and now we're back out of your budget. If we can just get some consistency, right, in our interest rates, which I think is coming, we're going to see that confidence kind of come back on the consumer side of things, and it's going to be more predictable. And I think that we're going to see more sales coming up this back half of this year.
Yeah, it's a great point, Mike. I mean, I think that it's really stressful for home buyers to see these rates moving up and down, even if it's only half point, but moving up and down, it's making many of them hesitate and say, I'm going to wait, but if we could just, if we're going to lock in at 6.25, but it's going to be 6.25 for the next year, great. Then we know what it's going to be. Buyers know what it's going to be. They can make decisions based on, a consistent rate, rather than this up and down. And, and then you have, you've got your pool of buyers that are like, I'm going to wait till it gets to 5, and you always have those buyers, right? Oh, no, I'm going to wait till it gets to 5.5. And then, I got to wait till 4, and so I think if rates can just stay consistent, and again, I believe rates in the 6s are good. I think rates in the 5s are great. Anything below that is
Historical.
Unreal, so although we had it for a few years, but you're right, Mike, let's get some consistency and get some folks off the fence and help them get into a house.
Now, I don't know how you feel about some forecasting, Mike, just because it's an election year. And I know last week was a very active week with a lot of reports and meetings happening last week. And so we still have some of those meetings and reports coming up here in the summer months, and then obviously the election as well. But just from from what I can sense as a realtor. It kind of feels like maybe we're not going to see a lot of consistency with it. I do feel like they are going to be more attractive, in the upcoming months. I still don't think, Jason, you're going to win your $2 bill bet. I don't know if we're going to get into those rates to where you're going to win that
I'm winning
by the end of the calendar year.
Oh, yeah, it's gonna
But there's,
happen.
a lot of time on the table. So
It's
gonna
such a
go
wild
out and-
card. The
It
election
is.
thing's a wild card. People always ask me, so what do you think is going to happen with rates with the election? My answer is, well, you tell me who the next president is going to be, then I'll tell you where interest rates are going to go. Right? We don't know. You know what I
And
mean?
then
It's like-
inflation is just a beast. And
Yeah.
I think that's the other factor too. It
Yeah,
seems like they can spin good news or bad news with the same exact stat however they want to, but
well,
inflation's sticky.
and then that information changes. So did you see the thing I sent out yesterday? So I sent out your market screenshot. If you read the commentary down there, right? They spoke about a jobs report that came out last month. And they said, oops, sorry, this jobs report that came out last month, it said that there was 675,000 new jobs created. There was actually only 115,000 created. So we were off by 521,000 on that data. And that actually helped our interest rates. So when you have a bad jobs report, that helps interest rates go down. That's part of the reason why our interest rates are lower today, is because a month ago when the actual initial report came out, they're like, hey, 675,000 new jobs were created, or 600 some thousand, right? And then they came out this week and said, ooh, we reanalyzed the data and we actually found out there's only like 115 or 130,000 that were created. We were off by 521,000 jobs on that initial report.
It's a big difference.
Well, it's like, come on, people, it's numbers, right? Like, how are you that far off analyzing the data? But that's the type of thing that's causing these ups and downs, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like this report comes out, and then the next month we're looking at data and reanalyzing data and then changing the numbers on there, right? And that's causing fluctuation. So, again, it's just going to be nice to get some consistency. And I'm very curious to see what the election does too, because, the government can artificially change mortgage interest rates. So it's called QE, quantitative easing is what it's called. They did QE for 10 straight years from 2014 to basically 2024, right? I should say 2013 to 2023, and they basically stopped on January 1st of 2024. So what quantitative easing is that the federal government will come in here and they'll buy mortgage bonds. They'll say, we're going to buy $500 million worth of mortgage bonds per month for the next 24 months or whatever, right? So now these mortgage investors, they have a guaranteed buyer of these mortgage bonds, which is the federal government saying that, hey, we're going to buy this many. So now money infuses into that market because they know that they can unload these assets if they need to, and they got a buyer there. And then that helps interest rates come down. The government stopped that. Now, could they hop right back in and say, you know what, we're going to do quantitative easing again, and this is how much money we're going to pump in there each month? That would instantly lower interest rates, and we could literally see a slide of interest rates going from the mid sixes down to 5% flat, probably by the end of the year, if they chose to do that, and how much money they actually wanted to pump in there. But again, are they going to do that or not? As of right now, there's been no talks about it, so I don't expect them to do it. But does a new president do that? Does the current president do it because they see a need for it and that's what the public wants? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it definitely seems like obviously a lot of. We'll jump into the last part here, and I think it's a good segue of it. We're talking new construction. I think in general, the American dream is to own a home. That's a major part of the American dream, is to own your own home. I do think that we've seen these younger generations say, yes, we understand, but we don't have that sense of urgency like the older generations do. I mean, you look at the millennial generation, and they statistically just were completely off the charts on when they were starting families, when they were buying houses. And that might be the new norm. And we're seeing our big builders and developers building new construction, single-family homes, not to sell to buyers of owner occupancy type buyers. They're selling them to investors. they're building new construction single family homes as a rental property. And so maybe the younger generations are like, yeah, we're comfortable being renters for life. That might be something that trends, in the years to come. And, but when we do talk about new construction, as a buyer, buyer who's buying it for their home, there's a lot of great incentives out there. I mean, our high volume builders that we have in our market here in the Sioux Empire, they're offering incentives up front, whether it's 2-3% concession towards closing costs, 2-3% concession towards a buy down, 2-3% concession towards upgrades, and it's part of their marketing. Upfront marketing, and almost all of our high volume builders are offering that. So, if you are a buyer out there and you want new construction, there's some really good deals out there.
Yeah, I think, Marcus, just to comment about when first-time home buyers are buying, I just had this conversation yesterday. I read a study recently talked about the millennial generation, and you're exactly right. Most being over 50%. I don't know exactly what the number is, but most of them waited to buy their first home. They waited until their early to mid 30s. But the newest generation of home buyers, Gen Z, they're not waiting. So they're taking a similar path to the Gen Xers, and they're buying their first home right out of college or a year after college or their early 20s. And so there's, the first-time home buyers still make up the biggest pool of buyers. The newest generation of first-time home buyers, they're not going to wait, and they're not waiting. They're buying right now. So it certainly is interesting, and it's always fascinating to me to see, the different trends and and how the different generations are buying and when. And so, but you keep that in mind. Okay, if that generation is not waiting, and then you got the generation before them, the millennials, that are waiting, now you got even more demand, right? Because you got two generations of first-time home buyers, yep. Right? And so it's it certainly is interesting.
And I think their buying power, is likely going to be different. If you are a millennial and you've been in your professional career for 10 years, and you're holding off on children, you're married, maybe you're a dink, double income, no kids type of couple. I've seen millennials first time purchase being on a property $500,000 more. Simply because they're just financially in that position. So they're definitely and it's like you said, Jason, they're definitely buying together. But that's where we have demand for entry level housing, and we also have a high demand for that, and a high demand for first time move up buyers too. So it's that demand is covering a vast majority of the number of units that make up inventory. I mean, obviously, the luxury listings aren't making up 80% of your inventory. Right. It's making up a lot less. And so, in general, the inventory that is available is in high demand. Mm-hmm. So, and I know you guys did a great show last week about new construction. So, if you want to see that show, hop on our website, ushometalk.com, and you can go back and see that show and find out some great tips on why to buy new construction, why it's a good thing to do. And as always, guys, we really appreciate you guys being on today's show, coming on here, listening to us, giving us your time. Thank you for tuning in. As I said, you can find all of our past shows on our website, ushometalk.com, or wherever you guys find your podcasts. We are your hosts, Marcus Walgrave, Jason Walgrave, and Mike Overson. We hope you guys have yourself a blessed week.